Hi, you guys. Hello and welcome. I hope everyone's doing really well. It's been a while since I filmed a video. My lifestyle is insane. I really don't have a lot of privacy in my life at the moment, so it gets really hard to film these videos, but I'm back and you know what? I'm going to try my absolute best to get some time to film these for you guys because I really like them and I really want to help spread the word on beautiful plants out there, and I really want to help educate people as much as I can. So, yeah, just had to get that out there. This here is Ficus Audrey, also known as Ficus bengalensis. And just before I start this video, another thing I want to say is I really wanted to give a quick shout out to my friend Hania. Her channel on YouTube is called Hania Ray, and she's just a fantastic person, beautiful member of the online plant community, and she made a video on this plant and kind of inspired me to make my own video on this plant because I just happen to have one. And I'll link her video on the Ficus bengalensis down below in the description. Highly recommend you guys follow her. Beautiful person. She is literally the queen of germinating seeds. So highly recommend you guys check her out. And if you're watching, hey Hania. So yeah, this here is Ficus bengalensis, Ficus Audrey. It's a native to India and southern Pakistan. It's in the Moraceae family. It's in the genus Ficus, and it's quite similar to the Ficus altissima, only this one has more of like a matte finish to it. Has the same striking venation. It's also known as the weeping fig, the Indian fig, the sacred fig, the Indian banyan, and the great banyan tree. And it grows incredibly huge in its natural habitat. This plant can get 100, 112, 122 feet tall, and it uses these great big prop roots to just kind of sprawl and create canopies that can really actually be the size of multiple city blocks. So it's just a very interesting plant. It's thought to have originated around Visakhapatnam, which is in the Andhra Pradesh on the eastern coast of the Indian subcontinent, and it's thought to have migrated westward into southern Pakistan to the eastern side of the Karachi coast. This is a heat-loving plant. It's a plant that loves to have a lot of direct to near direct light exposure. I find that if mine's not within a foot of a good window, especially a southern or a southwest, southeastern exposed window, it tends to suffer a little bit. Now, much like many other ficuses, I have a Ficus lyrata down there. This one doesn't like to be moved too much, says the guy that's currently moving it. It'll go yellow and drop many leaves if you move it too much. That's just a sign of it acclimating to its new scenario. Kind of similar to the Ficus benjamina in that it's a little finicky that way. I recommend dusting off their leaves every once in a while. They're definitely dust magnets. You don't want to let this plant get near too many drafts. They don't like cold wind. I'm not going to say that they're a really high humidity loving plant, but they're definitely one that benefits from weekly misting. They're not too susceptible to hard chemistry water. They're not very susceptible to chlorosis, so definitely I think watering with tap water is fine. They're not very heavy feeders at all. I feed mine like maybe once every 2 months. It seems to be doing just fine. Yeah, I think it's doing fine. Before I filmed this video, I actually wanted to show you what it looked like because it had one leaf that originated right there that was going kind of brown, and I wanted to show you guys because the leaves naturally do fall off as this plant grows, but it fell off, and you know what? I actually can't find the leaf. But yeah, so usually if you have 1 or 2 or even 3 brown leaves at the bottom of each cane, that's just your plant getting a little bit older. These guys will produce a little latex-like sap, like many other ficuses, and that can irritate your skin, so just be mindful if you're going to prune these guys. They have a very insignificant flower. It's kind of like a creamy white, kind of aroid-esque, kind of almost like a spadix flower. Not very showy at all, kind of hard to get them to bloom indoors. Another thing I want to say is this is almost mature leaf form. The juvenile leaves are a little bit smaller and then they get a little bit bigger. These ones are about 15 centimeters long. They can get to be about 20, 25, even 30 centimeters long, but they retain the oval shape. This plant, as it gets older, has these really interesting epiphytic aerial roots that really let them expand their canopy, which is really quite cool. As the leaves first emerge, they kind of have this erect posture and then they kind of flop downwards. Kind of like the Ficus lyrata or the fiddle leaf fig, if your leaves are facing upwards, generally speaking, that's a sign that they're pretty happy. You don't want your leaves to face downwards. Usually if they're facing downwards, they're in too much of a cold environment, and that's a little bit of plant shock. Now for watering, you're definitely going to want to make sure that this plant dries out a little bit between waterings. You want to let it go almost bone dry, almost half of the pod depth completely bone dry for 2, sometimes even 3 days, 4 days in the winter. And then you're going to want to water it really, really deeply and really saturate the soil. Make sure you have wonderful drainage for this plant. If I have to rate it out of 10 on the hardness scale, I'm going to give it a 5. It likes being bunched up with other plants. They kind of up the humidity and kind of more mimic its natural sort of jungly environment. So I don't recommend planting these just kind of in one area just by themselves, like in the corner of a house just by itself. They like to be in groupings with other plants, is one thing that I've definitely noticed with these guys. Now, if you're gonna propagate them, try to get at least a few nodes. You can root directly into a growing media. Just make sure with the mother plant you leave at least a third of the plant at a time. You don't want to stress it out too much. What should I say? I recommend a number 2 rooting hormone powder if you wish to use rooting hormones. This one has just the perfect amount of auxins to initiate rooting on these guys. They can be a little bit finicky, a little bit difficult to root, especially as really hard mature wood cuttings. They're kind of hard to root. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, I recommend midsummer is probably the best time to propagate them. In the Southern Hemisphere, also midsummer, so usually about March, April, well, getting into late summer. If they have wounds that are a little bit too big, if, say, for example, you break off a leaf by accident, that shouldn't be too big of a problem, but you can put a little bit of candle wax or beeswax on it just to help heal it up and seal it. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful plant. This is Ficus bengalensis. Indoors, it's more likely to extend to about 8, 10, 12 feet tall. It's very, very difficult to get these guys to grow, obviously, to be quite massive like they would in the wild. And it's incredibly, ridiculously hard to get them to bloom. They do have a kind of coppery, rust-colored fig-like fruit, usually born in clusters of about 3, and usually they emerge around April, May, June. As I said before, incredibly rare to get these guys to bloom, and virtually impossible to get them to set fruit indoors. I mean, you can try, but really, really difficult. So this here is Ficus bengalensis, or the Ficus Audrey. They also have a variegated variety, Ficus bengalensis variegata. Very similar to Ficus altissima. This one has more of a matte finish. It likes very neutral soils, maybe slightly on the acidic side. Really good drainage. I recommend repotting about every 2-3 years. They like to be slightly on the pot-bound side, but definitely not too much. It's definitely a faster grower once it gets a little bit more mature. And I would honestly treat this very similarly to the baby rubber plant or the Ficus elastica. Yeah, they're very similar in anatomy and they're very similar in care too. So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Once again, I'm definitely going to reference my friend Hania's video in the bottom. She's so awesome, you guys. You really got to check out her channel. Great selection of plants too. But yeah, I hope you guys are all doing really wonderful. Stay blessed. Have a wonderful day out there, you guys. Stay healthy. And yeah, thank you. Okay, bye.